How's it going to all my fellow white oppressors out there? Don't I give off those vibes? You guys have seen several of my videos. For those of you who have seen a bunch, for those of you that are seeing one, don't I give off those oppressor vibes? They're back in the news. They'll never stop. There's always going to be people out there that think this is a great idea, just like there's always going to be idiot Karens out there that we've seen in the news recently that are out there yelling at people with no masks, that are out there yelling about mulattoes and half-breeds. There's always idiots in our society that keep the stories flowing. You don't have to make shit up. Content just presents itself, and I just sit here and talk about it. Virginia college staff training video labels straight white Christian males as oppressors who engage in the systematic subjugation of minorities. A training video shown to James Madison University student employees described the difference between privileged and oppressed groups. The groups were separated based on classification of race, gender, sexuality, religion, and others. The concepts taught in the video related to the idea of critical race theory, which explores the relationship between race and U.S. law. Teacher Monica McGill at Loudoun County Public Schools revealed to Fox News that CRT was also being applied into their education system. And this is it. This is the fight. The fight is never ending, because there is never going to be a shortage of individuals who want to use racism as a means to create a power situation for themselves. It's never going to stop. There's always going to be individuals out there that think that the way to get more money, get promoted, be in good standing with whomever, with whatever ass they're trying to kiss, is to subjugate a particular class of individuals, a race, what have you. In this situation, though, you have to think, okay, so straight, white, Christian males, if you really sat there and thought about how many straight, white, Christian males are out there in society, obviously we know religion is becoming less and less of a thing as the decades go on, as the years go on. Morality in the shitter. A lot of that probably can be tied to how religion has kind of seen a little bit of a drop. It's more so Christianity and Catholicism, I would say. But how large of a group really is a straight white Christian male? It'd be a minority of society if you set everybody who was straight white and Christian on one side and everyone else on the other side. What would you say? First of all, let's start with the fact that we have what is the white population here? 60%, 65%? Let's just say it's 65% in some form. All right, so we've got 65% of society, but now we have to half that because of the male and female. So now we're talking about, let's say, 32.5% of our society already in the minority. And how many of them are actually religious out of that percentage of that population? Out of all men who are white and straight, how many are actually religious? 10%? 20%? You could be talking about a number of people that's 8 to 10% of the population. Kind of hard to think that they could be oppressing the other 90% of society. Interesting. The training being provided to these students was meant to teach them about social justice and include social justice. Not there for education, but there for social justice. Students were warned via email after training was complete not to share the material they learned. And as we know, everybody, right? When somebody tells you not to do something, you're going to do it. We still have a little bit of that kid in us, right? Oh, son, don't touch that pot. It's hot. Sure, Mom. We got to be burned once by the pot, right? If they hadn't told people to not share, then perhaps people wouldn't have been as likely to share. Young people, right? Got to fight back against somebody when they tell you something. A statement released by JMU said the training was held to help ensure that every student guide for freshman orientation had the tools and understanding to work with incoming students who might have a different background than their own. At JMU, we strive to create an inclusive and welcoming community for all students, but not all students. By all students, they don't mean all students. We also seek feedback on the training to consistently work on improving how we communicate and train student staff members. In the video, staff coordinators Jessica Weed and Jennifer Eworks discuss topics relating to oppression and privilege. To begin, oppression was defined as the presentation of the systematic subjugation of one social group by a more powerful social group for the social, economic, and political benefit of the more powerful social group. As I said, about 90% of people, in my guesstimation, wouldn't be white, Christian, and male in society. So if you've got 90% versus 10%, who's the more powerful social group? That's one thought. Second thought, we're talking about individuals going to college. Now, granted, we all come from different socioeconomic backgrounds when it comes to arriving at school. But we're talking about individuals who, wouldn't you say, have a lot of privilege? They're individuals who are actually in college. Not all of them are going to graduate and go on to have great careers, of course. But if you're focused on a major, like business administration, IT, computer forensics, nursing, going on to be a lawyer or doctor, you're setting yourself up to have great privilege. So how are these individuals that the student educators are going to work with, how exactly are those individuals not privileged? I would say that individuals who get into college, regardless of what type of college it is, have some form of privilege already and are working hard to get a degree to have more privilege in life. That's what I did. Bachelor's, then to the MBA, so I could have more privilege in life. These powerful individuals were seen as oppressor groups in the workshop that seem to set perceptions of the world for themselves, as well as for other target groups. Look at these oppressed here. Don't they look so oppressed? Look, they're wearing nice clothes. They look cleaner than I do, that's for sure. And nice handbags. I don't know. I don't exactly see any oppressed individuals here. In turn, these target groups accept these perceptions and apply them to their lives as well as their method of thinking and acting. You know what? I would just say this though. A thought just crossed my mind. I wouldn't necessarily think that the statement provided from JMU was the entire thing, because it seems like they're doubling down there. They are not backing down in any sense of the imagination. I don't know. I can't imagine that that statement I read is their full statement. This privilege was defined as unearned social power accorded by the formal and informal institutions of society to all members of dominant group at the expense of targeted groups. It also said members of both the oppressor and target groups are socialized to play their roles as normal and correct. The privileged were considered to be male, cisgender, heterosexual, hetero-romantic, Christian, white, Western European, American, upper, middle class, thin, athletic build, able-bodied, or ages 30 to early 50s. Holy shit, I fit a lot of those categories, I think. Woo, I think they're coming after me. You know, and I was talking about 10% of the population possibly. Now look at this. We get even smaller and smaller. Upper to middle class. You're shrinking it down even more. Thin, athletic build. We know Americans are fat, able-bodied, and a specific age group, 30s to early 50s. What are they talking about? They've got to be talking about 1 to 2% of the population. Are you saying that that 98% can't take down this 2% of the population? These damn male, cisgender, hetero-romantic Christians. Damn them. The oppressed in turn were identified as Black, Asian, I'm not saying that word, I'll just say Latin, non-Western European, the rainbow people, homo-romantic, Muslim, Jewish, working class. Jews got in there, huh? Working class. I just thought of something. Remember when Nick Cannon said what he said about Jews and white people? And he got canned for what he said about Jews and had to apologize, but didn't apologize for what he said about white people. How are Jews here in the oppressed group? I don't think that Jews would consider themselves oppressed. Jewish individuals out there, do you consider yourself oppressed? I've never come across a Jewish person in America who said, you know what? I think I'm oppressed. I would think that you guys, Jewish folk, would be like, no, I'm not oppressed at all. Unless, of course, you're talking about under de Blasio and his rules there about how he shit on Jewish New Yorkers. Working class, overweight, or disabled, among others. These teachings relate to a concept formerly known as critical race theory, designed to examine the relationship between race and U.S. law. JMU is not the only institution to be teaching these values to their students, as other schools have received criticism for implementing it into their education system. Can you imagine when you get out of school, if you're brainwashed to believe these kind of things, that when you get out of school, you've been taught that you have to look for those traits. And they're not always those traits, every single one of them. Usually it's just white, straight. I don't even know about Christian. but you've been taught that all of these traits you have to look for and that's bad. And then you go around trying to find that, and then you realize, or maybe you never realize, that that's such a small segment of the population that they've broken it down to, that there really isn't a fight to be had. I don't know. Gill said that she witnessed students of color excluding white students from conversations because of their race. There you go. As I said, using racism against a different group to promote equity. Interesting choice. Rather than just saying that we're all created equal, content of our character kind of thing, they said, you know what? Let's choose racism as a way of creating equity in society. No child should be excluded from a discussion because of their race, Gill said. The idea of critical race theory became a national debate during the BLM riots that occurred last year. The theory has received criticism for its views on race and defining privilege and oppression based on the color of someone's skin. And you hear that stuff on the other side as well, in terms of if somebody's telling you, if you are not white and you're watching this video, they're telling you basically you're a piece of shit, you're oppressed, white man is terrible. How's that supposed to make you feel, right? Me, I don't think about it any kind of way. I don't take this as an attack on me specifically. If one of these idiots tries to get in my face and tell me I'm the oppressor and tries to put me in my place, so to speak, then we're going to have a problem. But I'm not going to sit here and think that every colored person I walk by sees me as the white devil. I'm just not going to think that way. And I'm just not going to think of every colored person as somebody who's oppressed and been oppressed as well. You take people at face value for what they are, right? Let them present themselves to you, how they are, and you kind of can judge their character for themselves. That's how I always approach things. That's how I was raised. Kind of crazy, right? But to tell somebody they're the oppressor and to tell somebody they're the oppressed, it would seem to damage both individuals, right? You get the oppressed all riled up because you tell them over and over again that they aren't shit. But then the oppressors, if they keep getting told and told over and over again that they're not shit either, how are they going to feel? It's going to have people hating each other. However, the theory has also been supported by others for its way in which the relationship between race and American politics, culture, and law can be further explored and built upon. Comments. It's like these JMU administrators never met a broke, struggling white person. What does all this matter if the ideas concerning oppression are based on immutable characteristics? At the end of the day, it will not have improved, as the oppressive white person will still be white and will remain an oppressor in the eyes of the Marxists running this BS. And that's something I allude to in my videos when we're on this topic, where you have these losers in society that are taught about how terrible America was in the past. And granted, there are terrible atrocities that happen to nearly every race. You can name them. It's not just blacks, but it was the Irish, the Germans, the Japanese, the Chinese. Like, you can name everybody. Everybody got shit on. The natives at the time shit on as well. You have individuals who use the history of this country, stuff that happened 150 years ago, 100 years ago, to paint current day America in a negative light. For what? Well, Marxists do what they do, power by division. And no matter how far you get away from these events, the weak will always only be able to hearken back. You'd have a discussion with them, and you can tell they have nothing of substance to offer, because they keep talking about shit that happened a long ass time ago. But that being said, you know that they're weak. You know that they're pathetic. You know that they're brainwashed. But you can't show them any other thing besides what they've been led to believe, like a PTSD kind of thing. They've been beat so much over and over again that this is what they believe, that you can't tell them any different. You can't point out all the great advances and the great places that we're at right now. They just don't believe it. They just don't want to get out of that mindset. They want to think that they're the hero in their own story, that they're living 150 years ago, that they're trying to be Abe Lincoln ending slavery, that they were the one at the lunch counters during the civil rights era in the 60s. There's never any acknowledgement of advancement. All they can ever do is point to the failures of the past. You can't do anything with people like that. And that's why you keep having these stories come up over and over and over again. No matter how far we go, and no matter how much we move the needle towards the positive, there are going to be these sorry-ass people that continue to want to divide and conquer for their own political power and gain. Simple thoughts, I know, but that's just how I see it. This country needs to believe that these idiots believing and preaching this are teaching your kids. I'm sick of all these institutions being allowed to operate illegally and out in the open. Close them down and take away all their certifications and freeze their funds. Enough is enough. And to that, I would say maybe that's a step too far, but are you going to do anything here? In my opinion, nice username, are you going to do anything about it, or are you just going to post a comment here? So they're happy with labels. What's the point of being in a majority if you can't subjugate everyone else? And that's exactly what I was saying. The way they broke it down, they're talking about 95, 6, 7% of the population ganging up on 2, 3, 4% of the population. It's not a fair fight. Not really a tough fight to win. My son turned down JMU, and Virginia Tech is much better, but Tech is getting infected with Northern mentality already. My son's roommate was from Arlington. Okay, so they're talking about Northern Virginia. I thought they were talking about the northern states. Got it. Arlington, Virginia. The entire movement is severely flawed. This needs to start at home. It comes across like a televangelist's grift. I've made lifelong friends of all races and would jump through fire for them. I don't buy it. #fail. And that's pretty much what I alluded to in my life. But I will say this, though, in just getting back to the repetitive beatdown over and over again of the oppressor and the oppressed. How can you fault individuals who are told these things over and over and over again? People here made great points. It starts in the home. You have to raise your kids with great values to where they know this shit is bull when they hear it and call it out. If you don't raise your kid right with a great sense of morality and ethics and values, then they can become easily manipulated by this. And the next thing you know, they're causing $2 or $3 billion of damage, smashing up streets in 2020 and throwing up a black power fist for BLM and Antifa. That's all I got. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care, be well, and when you see this shit, call it out. Not just here in comments in an article, but you need to step up. School boards, teaching your kids well, contacting your politicians, contacting corporations. It's the only way it works. It's the only way to stop this stuff is if people don't stop fighting, because there seems to be an endless supply of idiots rolling off the factory that have been brainwashed by this stuff. Take care, everyone.